and as people join, they can pop in and join us. So I want to do a couple. I have two pictures of myself here today. I want to do a couple of housekeeping items. So first off, welcome everybody. This is going to be a really interactive webinar. So we're going to do a lot of sort of stopping and clarifying and doing things like that. If you look at the bottom of your screen, we have a couple of ways that that you can interact during the webinar. One is the Q&A. So on my screen, it's at the bottom on the far right. You can also raise your hand. We're going to see how that goes. Raising your hand allows me to unmute you and have you talk. So usually if I'm looking for some sort of a clarification, we can do that. But if you want to type your question first in the Q&A, that would be great, so we know what your question is. So for today, we're going to deal with one topic, and pretty much one topic only. And that is the estimate that your insurance company gave you for your loss, and how to read it, what to do with it, and how you can use it to help your claim move along. Okay, so I'm going to ask that all the questions that you guys asked today are associated with that topic. If you have other questions regarding other insurance issues related to your claim, I'm going to ask you to hold them and join one of our Q&A sessions on a different date. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So if you do send a question and it's like related to, you know, something completely different like ALE or something like that, we're probably we're going to ignore your question today, sorry. But we're going to get, as you see when we go through, we do have a lot of information, so we're going to try to really stay on topic today. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start the webinar. Hopefully all of you have a copy of your declarations pages for your insurance policy and a copy of the estimate that your insurance company gave you that you can mark up. Okay, because that's what we're gonna talk about today. If you don't, go get it now, because I'm going to go through the little intro screens. If you've been to our webinars before, you've seen the beginning before. So, okay, I'm going to start my slideshow. Okay, we call this all sorts of different things. We call it scoop on scope, resolving reconstruction pricing dispute, you know, fixing your insurance company's estimate. But if you're here and that's what you're here for, then you're in the right place. So, okay, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sandra Watts. I am a project coordinator and educator for United Policyholders in our Roadmap to Recovery program. My background is insurance claims. I've spent my whole life in insurance claims and claims management. I worked for State Farm for 25 years, and I worked for CIG for a while. I'm a public adjuster. I'm on the curriculum board for the Department of Insurance, helping train adjusters and agents and people in the industry. I'm also a certified fire and smoke restoration technician and a water restoration technician. Part of my career was spent on the other side of claims doing mitigation work. And then I'm an appraiser and an umpire. So I have been around the block. I don't know everything, but I can help you with this specific issue, okay? For those of you who aren't familiar with UP, if this is your first webinar, welcome. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to be a voice and information resource for consumers in all 50 states. We need to update this slide. It says 26-year track record. That's my mistake. This year will be United Policyholders' 30th year. Amy Bach, who's our executive director, co-founded United Policyholders back in 1991 after the Oakland Hills fire, because of a recognized need to help consumers through the claims process after they suffered a disaster. Okay, we're not for profit, not for sale. We don't take money from insurance companies. That allows us to remain, you know, unbiased. We're funded entirely by grants and donations. So we thank our funders greatly, because it is their grants and individuals' donations that allow us to be here to help you today. Okay. We also have a very big group of volunteers, former disaster survivors, just like you guys, who went through this years ago, come back and help us. Carrie Waite, who is one of our UP staffers now, is a former Colorado wildfire survivor. She's circled back and helps. And we have a lot of attorneys and adjusters and CPAs and all sorts of people who we rely on for their professional expertise. So, okay, fine print. This workshop is guidance only. Okay, we don't provide legal advice. If you have a specific legal question, we recommend you consult an experienced attorney. I'm not an attorney. We have some on our staff, but also if they give you advice, it's not legal advice. We don't warrant or endorse any of the sponsors listed at uphelp.org, but they are a great resource. They're people we know who can help you with different phases of the claims process. Okay, so we're going to move right along, and we're going to get into the topic. I'm going to do some talking, and then we're going to stop and let the talking. We're going to show you how to apply it to your claim. Okay. So what we want to do is break the log jam, okay, in the claim settlement process. And a lot of times when I'm helping people, I see that the claim process sort of comes to a halt at the point where the insurance company sends the estimate, you get it, and then all of a sudden you're sort of like, what do we do now? A lot of people go straight to the last page of the estimate, which is completely normal, to see how much are they offering to pay me. In a lot of cases, it's much lower than you were expecting. So people, kind of freak out, and, then it, sort of think it becomes an adversarial position, and it isn't necessarily so. So we're going to help you move past that stage. And in order to do that, we want to make sure you understand your policy limits, okay, and how your policy limits feed into what you're owed under your policy. Understanding the paperwork, these giant estimates that the insurance companies send you, how to fix that scope and estimate, and why you need to fix it. It's very, very important that it is fixed, and then how to, where to go from there, okay? So that's what we're doing today. Okay, so this is going to be a review for a lot of you, but it's really important to remember that coverage A dwelling, it's your big ticket item, okay? And so you really need to be clear on the math and know your limits. And I have a tendency to think that people know this, and I've learned from experience, say after the Paradise Fire, where people come to me a year and a half later, and they say, okay, well, I've received this and I'm worried about that. And I'll say, well, what about, your extended coverage? And they say, what? So we can't take it for granted. We do have a webinar on our YouTube channel. So we're getting a pretty decent sized YouTube channel that has pre-recorded webinars. And one of them is how to read and understand your insurance policy. I know, not the most amazing thing you can see on YouTube, listening to me talk about the insurance policy, but it is really important. And it's something that consumers pay a lot of money for their insurance and know very little about it, considering. I mean, if you a lot of people do more research on other $1,000 items than they do for their insurance. So if you feel like you're not understanding your policy, I would really recommend you finding that webinar on our YouTube channel and listening to it. I'm going to do a real quickie here, just for coverage A today. So your coverage A limits are your limits for the main dwelling. Okay, you need to know whether or not you have what's called extended replacement cost, okay? Different companies might call it something different. Allstate calls it, when you talk to them, they call it BISRA. I can't even think, it's like building structure replacement, something like that. So they call it different things. State Farm calls it increased dwelling. It is an extension of your coverage A. If you run out of coverage A limits, and you meet the requirements of your policy, then they will add a specific percentage on to the end. It's usually 25, 50, 100%. Okay, debris removal, same thing. So debris removal, and we have lots of meetings about debris removal. It is something that can be estimated and paid in different ways based upon your policy. So some people, you might recognize the 5% additional debris removal coverage and wonder, A, why haven't I seen that yet from my insurance company? Or B, why am I seeing debris removal costs in my coverage A? Okay, so the way the debris removal works really quickly is it's estimated as part of the dwelling replacement cost. So they put it in the estimate. So, and a lot of times, if you have a nice systematic adjuster who does things sort of logically in order, they'll do the debris removal first at the beginning of the estimate. Then they'll do, site preparation, foundation, framing, and then get into each room. So once you hit your coverage A limit, then there's usually a 5% additional coverage that pops onto the end. And what they do is, in essence, they take that 5% from the debris removal that's already in the coverage A estimate and they move it over, okay? So that's something to know. Also, a lot of your policies have code upgrade coverage, okay? It's not automatic. It is sometimes an additional amount of insurance where, it says 20%. And if it's an additional, that means it's stacked on top of your coverage A. Sometimes it's within the coverage A limit and you can designate a certain percentage of that coverage A limit for codes. They also call it ordinance or law. So anything that your house didn't have when the fire happened that you now are required to do in order to rebuild your home, those fall in the code upgrade coverages and ordinance or law, however you do it. And then the last one is trees, shrubs, and plants. Again, that's usually 5%. There's usually a limit per tree, shrub, or plant. I'm not going to really talk about that today, but that is part of your coverage A. Okay. I'm going to go really quickly. This is just a sample declarations page, okay? And it's how you look at your declarations. This is your coverage A dwelling. This particular policy has $300,200 for the dwelling. This policy also has limited home replacement cost. So this is what we call extended replacement cost. And it's 150% of coverage A, okay? Also, they have building code upgrade limit right here, $75,050. This is a good declaration page in that you don't have to go hunting through the policy to find your limits. Some policies you do have to go through the policy in order to find those limits. So, okay. This is just a representative example of the buckets. We call them buckets. And this is the basic dwelling coverage, okay? And these are just easy numbers just to make it easy. That's the main thing. But what this is showing is that, let me get rid of this here, hold on, is that it looks like you have maybe $100,000 of coverage from your policy, but when you add all the little things on here, you often have at least twice as much as you did before. Okay, so when you add it all together, all of those pots of money, those buckets of money, are what you're going to use to rebuild your home or to buy another home somewhere else. Okay. This is just a little representation of what we like people to do, is to really get it lined out. This is just an easy little chart showing in a different way, coverage A dwelling, inflation. I just saw an inflation question there. So the inflation coverage is not, it's trying to keep up with, it's the consumer price index. And this anonymous attendee is talking about hyperinflation. That's not really inflation. That is sort of a supply and demand issue, just based on the fact that so many houses have burned, that the cost has gone up. But the inflation coverage on your policy is tied into the National Consumer Price Index. And I'm seeing, she's saying the limits are far too low. We have an underinsurance webinar coming on up, so we're not going to really address that today, but that is the case. And that's one of the reasons why we're trying to, help you get the maximum amount that you can get under the policy.
Sandy, this is Valerie. Before you jump, the last question in the queue is Jacqueline about her ordinance coverage. State Farm told her the 5% was only for a partially destroyed home and did not apply to their total loss situation.
Yes, that is wrong. I work for State Farm for 25 years. I deal with their policies all the time now. You just have an adjuster that doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm very sorry to tell you. Go back, show them the piece of the policy. I'm sorry that you have to do that. But you're just going to have to do it. And let me address some of these questions, because some of these questions are perfect for this time right now. Elfie, hi Elfie. I haven't forgotten, whoopsie, somebody just moved Elfie. Hold on. Oh, there it goes. I haven't forgotten about the refrigerator issues. We're coming up with a different thing. I know I owe you some response there. But Elfie is saying, is extended coverage only on dwelling A? And that's a great question. Or is it also on dwelling extension and contents and all that? You have to look at your policy. So go to the portion of your policy that talks about extended coverage. Some of them apply to all the coverages, and it'll say, to each coverage. Some of them say coverage A only. So you have to look at your policy. Sebastian says, for ordinance or law, my policy states you may use up to 10% of the liability that applies to coverage A. Does this mean I have 10% over the limit or within the limit? So Sebastian, go to your policy where it talks about ordinance or law and it talks about using 10%. At the very bottom, in most cases, it says this coverage is an additional amount of insurance, or this coverage does not extend your coverage limit. So it's policy by policy. You'll need to look at yours. Let's see what Lori says. Will you be sending us a copy of this webinar and slides? No, but we'll, if you write afterwards, if you want to see this webinar or get the slides, you can write to info@uphelp.org and Carolyn will send you what you need. We don't generally put this webinar on YouTube because we've got a lot of people who steal our stuff. And we just want to save it, and they try to monetize it. So we like to save it for free for you guys. Okay, Jacqueline, we answered that. Okay, Jennifer, I'm going to defer your question because we could do a whole webinar on FEMA and debris removal. There's going to be more to come on that. We've been talking to people about each FEMA debris removal program is a little bit different. So we're going to have to deal with that different. Okay, Dennis, great. I would love to see Dennis. Dennis is saying he has an American Family Best Policy Gold Star Special Deluxe guaranteed replacement cost. You know what? I would love to see that, Dennis, if you wouldn't mind sending that to me. I can have one of the Val or Carrie send you my email address there. I haven't seen a guaranteed replacement cost in many years, so I would love to see what American Family is doing with that. And if that's the case, if you truly have guaranteed replacement cost, that just means that these limits don't apply. It's the actual cost to rebuild the home you lost. So I'd want to read that. Okay. William, let's see what William says. Farmers allows us $1 million to buy a new house, not on our property, 1.5 if we rebuild. Our house was worth $4 million. Frank Lloyd Wright, oh my goodness, on 63 acres. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about, First off, that doesn't make any sense, William. You're entitled to the cost, the amount it would cost to rebuild your home up to your policy limits. Now, I'm not sure if you're in California or in a different state. In California, we have very specific insurance code that talks about what you're entitled to. One of the things I'm going to talk to you guys about is the difference between the value of your home. Like William's talking about here, his house was worth approximately $4 million. So that's what you could sell it on the market. Totally different deal than what it costs to rebuild. Okay, and insurance deals with the rebuild cost. Okay, what it would cost to put it back together. And people get that really confused. And it makes a huge difference. So if you've got like a Frank Lloyd Wright type of house that's got some maybe architectural value, it could be that the cost to rebuild it is not nearly as high as if you could sell it, because it's got some intrinsic value in that thing. Like I live in San Francisco. My house, the cost to buy it is like double what it would cost to rebuild it, you know, for no good reason. So we're dealing with the cost to rebuild. And so you need to really remember that. And even if you guys are going to not rebuild, and if you want to buy a house somewhere else, you still need to do what we're doing today, because the amount they owe you is what it would cost to rebuild your house exactly as it was before the fire, up to the policy limit, plus code upgrades if you have that coverage. Okay, so it's really important. And that is why I think this is one of the most important steps in doing your claim. Stan's asking, how long should it take to get the estimate? You should probably have it by now. It varies, you know, they should be writing to you. In California, they say, you know, it says a reasonable amount of time. I would just keep pushing them. I'm just looking here. Okay, this is Laura has a question here, and it's exactly what this webinar is meant. State Farm sent us a check right after sending the estimate. The estimate is about $260,000 below our coverage, and the check says dwelling settlement draft based on State Farm estimate. Should we cash the check? Yes, you should cash a check. If you have a mortgage company, you want to get it moving through your mortgage company. So what I'm going to say is that keep in mind it's really difficult to estimate a house that's gone. Okay, if the house is still there, less of an excuse. The only information that they have to provide you with an estimate to rebuild your house is what you can provide them. If you can give them plans, if you can give them pictures, you know, all these different, you know, interviews to go through there. So these estimates that they're sending you, they're not necessarily trying to lowball you or trying to, you know, scam you or anything. They're required to pay what is called the undisputed amount as soon as they can determine that amount. So basically what these estimates are their first best estimate, okay? And that's why it's really important for you to go back and say, okay, this doesn't really reflect the home I lost, and it needs to reflect. So when you're talking about 260 below your coverage, the coverage limit, you know, they can be well thought out when you buy the policy, or they could be, you know, just guess in the dark. Most of the time people don't spend a lot of time thinking about how much it would cost to rebuild their house until it's actually burned and they need it. So I bet most of you did not take a lot of time when you bought the insurance policy. Your agent probably gave you some numbers, or the mortgage company required you to have a certain amount. So this is basically the first time. So the fact that it's 260 below your coverage, it tells us that you have room, you have plenty of room. If the estimate had been over your coverage limit and they paid you your coverage limit, then you're into, you know, say an underinsurance type of situation, but you wouldn't have to worry. So that the fact that you have 260 left on your coverage means you have a lot to gain by correcting your estimate, okay? And go ahead, you can cash a check it is just send them a note saying, we received this, thank you, we will get back to you, we're looking at it. Okay, Beverly, this is a great question, Beverly. Beverly says, and then we'll keep moving because we can do questions all day in and all day out. The insurance, where did it go here? My insurance company only gave me a detailed breakdown for other structures and landscaping, nothing for the house. They simply paid the full basic dwelling coverage. How do I move forward to get the extended replacement coverage? Beverly, if you could type in where you live, what state you live in, that would be great because it differs. Now, I am not, I know a lot of you are probably from other states. I am not an expert on other states. We do have Carrie with us, who's from Colorado, knows some of that. But if you're in California, there is it's called the California Property Insurance Bill, Consumer Bill of Rights or something along those lines. And it says that they have to give you a detailed estimate within a reasonable period of time. So what the companies do, and it's really interesting, they pay the coverage A limit. So people are really happy. And it's nice. I mean, I think it's great that they do that. I'm not, getting on them for that, but you still don't know how much you have to rebuild your house. So say you have, another 100%, maybe you've got, 100% extended limits. Well, how much of that do you get to use to buy a new house or to rebuild or to do things like that? So you need them. They have to. So I would, let me see, she's in Santa Cruz. Okay. So Beverly, they have a duty to, if you Google that California Property Insurance Bill of Rights, you can look in, and they should have sent you a piece of paper with that Bill of Rights on it. And it does say that they have to provide you an estimate within a reasonable amount of time. So you simply write to them and you say, thank you very much. I appreciate you paying me this coverage A limit. But I need the estimate. So please send me the estimate. Okay. Okay. Jennifer asks, I've already been paid the full amount for my house, but haven't checked if there's code upgrade limit. Should I look into that? Yep. Because it can be a lot of money. Even if I don't rebuild, can I ask for that money? Again, it depends on where you live. In California, you can take the code upgrade coverage and apply it to the purchase of a new home. And it would be the amount that it would have cost to bring the home you lost up to current building codes. The only caveat for the code upgrade coverage is you have to spend it to get it. So you'd have to make sure. And some companies, I'm just going to tell you, some of the companies are pushing back. Allstate and Nationwide are being very difficult on the code upgrade coverage. I feel like they don't properly understand the code in California. And then I'm not sure what the code is in Colorado. Okay, you guys, and I've got 18 questions here. So I'm going to have to go forward with the rest of the webinar so we can get through it. But I'm going to try to hit these as we move along. So Jacqueline's asking, Colorado, how do you get the extended coverage limit? Okay, so the things with the policy are exactly the same. How you get the extended coverage limit is you have to first agree on the amount it's going to cost to rebuild the home you lost. That's what's called the measure of indemnity. Okay, the measure of indemnity is how much to rebuild what you lost. That gives you your pot of money. Then in order to get the extended coverage limit, you have to spend it. So you either have to rebuild the house or you have to relocate and spend the money in order to get it. And that's the same for every state. Okay, so that's not a California thing. We do have some things in California that make it, a lot more specific, but that's fine. And Phoebe says, in Colorado, it's my understanding that we can't get extended coverage unless it's incurred. Is that correct? And that's generally correct. I've got some thoughts about that, but in general, that's correct. Okay. Okay. Okay, and Stanley, I'm not going to answer any contents questions, but no, State Farm's not paying out the 70%. Stanley also doesn't have his estimate yet. Said that they were done, but they were waiting on tree information. So give them whatever they want about the trees and tell them they need to send. They can't really hold up the estimate because they're waiting for something. They need to do that. Okay, so let's move on, and I'll get to some of those later. Whoops. Okay, so let's get into the dwelling claim process. And a lot of your questions are going to be answered as we move along. So I'm just going to keep this moving. Okay, so the dwelling claim process. So what your insurer should have done, whether you have a total loss or a partial loss, is they should have met with you. And if your house is a total loss, they should have had a pretty decent interview with you on the size of the rooms, the finishes in your house, asked you if you had plans, looked up through the building department. And if you are a partial loss, then they should have walked the house with you and pointed out the items of damage that need repair. Okay. And then they'll use that information to make a scope of loss. So let me tell you, a scope of loss is a little different than an estimate or a bid. The scope is the materials, it's the details, the quantity, how much hardwood floor do you have? How much drywall do you have? How big are your rooms? So the scope is what needs to be done. When you add money to it, it becomes an estimate, okay? So that is that. So they need to, what we're going to focus on here first is the scope of loss. Because like I said earlier, a lot of times people go to the last page and they say, like, one of you said earlier, it's 260 below your limits. You look and you say, hey, wait, this is, way below my limits. What we don't know by looking on that last page is how did they get to that amount? Is that your house? Is that, somebody else's house? We see a lot of, and I hear from a lot of people saying, hey, they missed a bathroom and the ceiling height is wrong and this and that. It is super. I cannot stress enough to you guys how important it is, unless they've paid you all your limits, and in which case, including your extended replacement cost, in which case you guys should be doing something more fun than this today. You have to have this correct, because when you start sending in estimates, okay, if say you correct, say they send you an estimate and it's wrong, okay, and you go get a contractor or a scope writer or somebody like that to give you an estimate, and you spend the time with this person and this accurately reflects your house. When you send it in to your insurance company, you're not comparing the same items. So it's not, and also you can't take the scope that the insurance company gave you and give it to a contractor to bid if it's not already correct. So there's a lot of reasons why. The other thing is that a lot of times when you correct the scope, the estimate resolves itself, okay? In a lot of cases, if it doesn't completely resolve the amounts issue, it narrows the situation. And then you can just focus on a few areas where the prices differ, okay? So I hope that is understandable, okay? So we touched on this a little bit earlier. The first check is a starting point, okay? You may have already received a check for your dwelling claim. It's a starting point. There's no problem with cashing it. You need to acknowledge you received it, thank them for it, and tell them you will be circling back around with your own estimate or with corrections or whatever, but it is fine to keep going. What you're entitled to, and you guys are going to get so tired of hearing me say that, but it's the cost to repair or rebuild your home exactly as it was before the fire, up to policy limits, plus any additional coverages, extended replacement costs, and code upgrade. It doesn't mean, and some of you will be told by your adjusters, that you have to replace your house exactly as it was. I talked to somebody this week. Not the case. Any state, doesn't matter. The way they get confused is that the policies, for the most part, say like, kind, and quality, okay? It's like, kind, and quality for determining how much they owe you, okay? So very few people, when rebuilding a home that they lost to wildfire, build exactly the same home. There's always, you know, something you can do, something you want to change, and that's fine. That is commonly done even, you know, before the wildfire days. You're allowed to do that, but you're not allowed to be, you're not allowed to have them pay for the differences. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why you have to nail it down now before you rebuild. So if you, then you can go to your contractor and you say, okay, I have X amount of this bucket of money. And then you talk to your contractor and then you build what you want. So some of the things in your house might be nicer. You might get rid of something that was there that you never used. Say you had, you know, 5 little bedrooms and you want 3 big bedrooms, you know, things like that. But if you wait, and this is what I worry about on the people who get the coverage A limit paid. And the insurance company will say, well, that's fine. When you rebuild or buy, we'll tell you what more we're going to pay. It doesn't work that way. So I saw a lot of people, especially in the campfire last year, go out and spend some money. So say the coverage A was like $200,000. They paid that up front. Say you had another $200,000 in your extended coverage, but you don't have an estimate. So you don't know how much of that you're entitled to, okay? Because you don't know how much it would have cost to rebuild your home. Well, then people go out and buy a home. Say they buy a home for $300,000. They get the other $100,000, so their house is paid for. But if it would have cost $500,000 to rebuild the home they lost, they would have been able to get the full $400,000. But if you don't incur it, you don't get it. So it's leaving money on the table. So those opportunities, those paying the coverage A is a huge opportunity for the insurance company to help you leave some money on the table that you would have otherwise been entitled to. So hope that's clear. Let me just look real quick before we start again, see if we've got anything. Jacqueline says, do they need to provide the scope of loss report to us? Yes, they do. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit.
Susan had a question about a time limit to respond or dispute the estimate from the insurance company.
Yeah, you received our estimate in 2019. It depends on where you're from, Susan. If you're from California, you're fine. You generally have 36 months. Carrie, do you know the Colorado? I'm not sure what it is in Colorado. A lot of times the policy says how much time you have. In California, it's by statute, so it doesn't matter what the policy said.
Yeah, I think it is based on the policy and then very limited statutes in general for contracts, but there isn't. I don't believe there's any specific guidance from the state of Colorado on that.
Okay, great, thank you. So Deborah says, let's see. Oh wait, that's a different one. Let's go. Deborah, I'm going to keep yours. Bonnie says, we went through the whole estimate, made many corrections resulting in increased payments, but there are many building details we don't understand. Is it always worth it to pay for a contractor to examine this? My answer to that question would be, it depends on how much room you have left in your policy coverages, okay? So, and April's asking about how to get an outside scope and estimate. I can show you guys how to do that. We have some scope preparers on our Find Help section of our website who can help you do that. But you need to look at a cost benefit, okay? And how much is it going to cost you to get that estimate? A lot of the going rate's about 1.5%. For the people who are used to doing it for insurance companies, okay? So you might find somebody who's a contractor who might be able to get it through. It doesn't mean that they can't. but these are the people who do this for a living. They write estimates for you to submit to your insurance company. They're general contractors. So if you're going to pay, you know, $5,000 for an estimate, but you only have, you know, $6,000 left in your policy, I would encourage you to try to do it yourself. If you have $100,000 left in your policy, those people are absolutely worth every dime. Okay. So the building details you don't understand, I'm going to try to help you a little bit with that, but you, in a lot of cases, you do need help with that. Okay. So I hope that was helpful. And April,
Andy?
yeah.
I'm wondering, are you going to touch on, there are several questions on what kind of documentation is required to prove code upgrade?
Yeah, you just need a bid. You need a bid. Different companies are different. I'm not going to get into that too deeply today. We'll do probably another webinar that'll talk. Most of the companies in California, I don't know Colorado that well, but they're used to this. So if you get a bid, they should allow it. Some of them say, you know, you have to have like a notice of correction from the building department or something like that. They, you know, in most cases, just get an estimate, and your estimate for the code upgrade coverage should be separate from your building upgrade coverage. And then Jeffrey, the only thing I'm saying about Nationwide being difficult regarding code upgrade coverage is that they have not acknowledged that you can take it and use it on a new house, even though the Department of Insurance has told them that you have to. And then, okay, anonymous on your extended coverage. Okay, I'm going to go back and keep moving along here. Let's go. We're going to get into these estimates now. Okay. And they're huge. They're pages and pages of items. They're hard to understand. Your head spins around. If you have a contractor's bid, you might have a big gap. You might be in an impasse. We're going to talk about what to do. Okay. So the first thing, and it's again, the same thing I talk about all the time, you need to compare apples to apples. When it's time, if you're going to rebuild, you need to have apples to apples. You need to know what it would cost to rebuild the home you lost. Real life builders, most real life builders don't use Xactimate. So for those of you who, my lights all just went out. For those of you who aren't familiar with Xactimate, it's the program that most insurance companies use to estimate losses. I like it. Some people don't like it. It's as good as the person using it. You can produce very good estimates on Xactimate, and you can produce very poor estimates on Xactimate. So let's talk about how we reconcile it. Okay. So we're going to start with the scope. So our goal here is to fix the adjuster's estimate to accurately reflect what you lost. So we're not going to worry about the numbers in the beginning. We're going to focus on the details. Okay. And that's the most important thing. Okay. So the first thing, and then I'm going to show you guys Xactimate. I'm going to do a little livey thing for you. The first thing is that if your adjuster hasn't spent a ton of time with you, asking you a lot of questions, then you need to revisit it with them. Okay. It's very important that you provide your adjuster with as many pre-loss details as you're able to provide, because it's the only way in a total loss that they will be able to write any sort of decent estimate. Okay. I recommend you starting with your own floor plan. I know it's hard. I know it's awful. And I hate that you guys have to do this, but it will help you. So you guys will learn, I'm very like business oriented. It doesn't mean that I'm not sympathetic to how hard this is. But my focus is how to get you into like a mind state where it's a business deal, and we just focus on what you need to do to get as much as you're entitled to. Okay. So what I recommend is that you sit down and you draw as best you can a diagram. okay, with the sizes and shapes of your rooms. Just be really rough in the beginning. Just in the first one, just rough it out. Then as you start and you keep going, you're going to get better at it. It's going to start clicking with you. As you do the first one, you're going to put the rooms, and then you can go to another piece of paper and try it over again, because you're going to say, oh, well, this room was bigger than that room, and you can kind of do it to scale. So what I recommend, and a lot of this, if you don't have plans or anything like that, you're going to have to do it from memory. But I like starting in the entry hall. You can start wherever you want, but in the entry, walk through the front door. Think of roughly the size. Put the doors in the right place. Think about how many doors there are. Sounds weird, very important. And then go room by room, okay? Get your floor plan. Get the basic dimensions. And go from there. And then I'm going to talk to you about how to do it in a room by room. Also, try to find whatever you can that will help you. Photos. And I tell people like, well, I didn't take photos of my house before this happened. And a lot of people don't. I recommend people walking through, we all have, our little phones, walking through and just making a video of your house every once in a while, opening the drawers, showing what's inside. I need to do it myself. Haven't done it recently, but it's really helpful. So if you have, but what I was talking about was, you might have had some pictures of, grandma's birthday party where you're all sitting in the living room. And when you look at pictures like that, in real life, you're looking at the people and you're looking at, the food or whatever. But once you've had something like this happen, now you're looking at the wall behind. You're looking if you can you see baseboards? Can you see crown molding? Do you have chair rails? Things like that, where you can look sort of around and behind the people and piece together your house. Goes without saying, don't lie, don't exaggerate, don't pad your claim. Okay. These are some items that we suggest you try to find if you can. Ask your local building department. Maybe your house wasn't built that long ago. If you were in let's say a development, the developer might have plans, photographs like we talked about, verbal descriptions, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. If there's anything on Google Earth, you can get some top end views, sometimes street views. Eagle view, that's a 3D roof measurement. If you guys have had a roof claim before, your insurance company might have a 3D aerial roof measurement of your house. That's usually only used by insurance companies or roofers. I don't even know what Draft Tech is or where that came from. Sorry. Zillow, some realtor website. I know if you go look at my house on Zillow, it's remodel, so it looks like a completely different house. You wouldn't even locate it on the street, but there might be something there. Okay, so when you're documenting your pre-loss condition, describe your dwelling in detail. Okay, and we're going to talk about ignore the contents. So what I like to do, and we're gonna do this. We're gonna do a little exercise now, and what I want you guys to do, I usually like to start when we're learning how to do this with your bedroom or the room that you spend the most time in. I don't recommend doing your kitchen to start with, because kitchens are a little bit harder. So start with your bedroom, and we're going to just sort of do a little meditation here. Seems kind of weird, but it's going to help you. So put yourself, and I do apologize because I do know it is painful for some people to do this. And I'm sorry, there's no way around it. If you want to really get an accurate estimate. So close your eyes, put yourself back in your old bedroom, and start to think about it, and start to think on fire claims. We always go from the ceiling down. So look at the ceiling in your mind, okay? And think about, don't even bother writing anything down right now, but think about on your ceiling. I'm thinking about my ceiling right now, and I have this funny little light fixture that I bought kind of as a joke until I could find the right one I liked. And then I fell in love with this light fixture that looks like a pineapple. It's this weird thing and it's awesome. So I have that light fixture and I have a smoke alarm, and that's it on my ceiling. I have no crown molding. My ceilings are 8 feet high in my bedroom, you know, so sort of think about that. Okay. Think about your materials. Think about whether you have beams on your ceiling, whether your ceiling is vaulted. I mean, don't worry about the terminology, like I said here, but just think about the texture of your drywall. Is it really smooth? Like my drywall is really smooth. I like really smooth drywall. So I had really smooth texture put on. So that's important because, as I'll show you later, there's different prices for different texture on your drywall. Okay. And it makes a difference. So think about your ceiling. Okay. And then I would have you, and then you kind of have to do it what's best for you in terms of writing things down. So you can either do your visualization exercise. I think you're getting the picture of what I want to do here. And then you're going to have to put it down on paper. So what I would probably do would be to stop and talk about special conditions. Do you have rounded corners? Do you have arches? Do you have anything like that? So what I would do is stop there, open my eyes, and write down pineapple light fixture and one Nest smoke CO2 alarm, because I put all the cool Nest stuff in, and smooth drywall, nothing else on my ceiling. Okay. And then close your eyes again. Okay. That's more kitchen, but then go down to your walls and think about your walls. Do you have any cabinets in your room? Do you have any built-ins? Where are your closets? That type of thing. So how many doors are in that room? Okay. And then let me tell you, and this is important, you count your doors one side from the room you're in. So if I'm in my room, I have one door that leads out from my bedroom into the hallway by the stairs. I don't have a closet door per se because I have sliding closet doors. So to count doors, I would count just one regular door and one sliding glass. It's like a frosted glass door to my closet, bypass doors. So, and then when you think about your doors, I have these doors that I put in that are, they're glass, they're frosted glass with wood around the outside. So they're completely different than most people's doors. Think about your door handles. Okay. I have these kind of super cool square door handles that are different. They wouldn't be, the same, you couldn't go buy them at Home Depot. Okay. So if you can, that's fine, but you need to describe what your door handles look like. And I know it just seems so tedious and so awful, but it makes a difference. There's a difference if you have 40 doorknobs in your house and the Home Depot doorknobs are $8 and the ones that you had in your house were $30, you're talking a huge difference. Okay. So that's why this is important. And unless you tell your adjuster, there is no way that they're going to know that you had these specific doorknobs. Okay. So that's what we do that. Now think about windows. Think about your drywall texture again. How big is your window roughly? How many, so then walk into your room in your head and turn on the light. How many switches? Do you have just one light switch by the door? Do you have 2 doors and a switch on each side? All of these things, okay? So what we're gonna do, okay, appliances, that's when you get to the kitchen, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have you go through your own in a minute. First, before we do that, I'm gonna show you the difference between a scope. So hopefully you guys all understand the exercise that we're doing here. Okay. And how this is going to work. Okay. So first I'm going to show you, this is a scope of loss. Okay. And if you notice, there is no price here. Now, if you have a cooperative adjuster, you can call them on the phone and simply ask them to produce a scope of loss for you with no prices so that you can do a repair. And I can show you a repair, I meant, correction. So this is really bad. This is me using my little Apple pen, and I don't do very well, but this is how you're going to mark it up. Okay, we're going to go to the estimate. Now, a lot of you guys just don't get too stuck here, but a lot of your estimates are going to look more like this: quantity, remove, replace, tax. This is overhead and profit and total. Can you see why, if you can get somebody to produce you a scope, why it might be a little bit easier to deal with something like this? Because now you're just dealing with what the item is and the footage, okay, the square footage. So, but don't get too crazy. Some adjusters don't even know how to produce the scope, and I'm going to show you because you can tell them. But so what we're going to do is I want you all, everyone who has their estimate with them, first thing I want to ask, and I'm going to look in the Q&A, did any of you guys get an estimate from your adjuster that didn't break it out room by room? Do you see how I have like pantry here, and it's got the dimensions of the pantry and it's got all the stuff inside the pantry? Did any of you guys get a estimate? And it was the one we saw in Paradise was nationwide mainly, where they did like all the framing together, all the drywall together, all the carpeting together. Let me know if you received that, because you're going to be struggling. And so I want to know if, let's see if somebody did this here. No detail, just a bottom line.
Sandy, that was for me, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So April, you didn't get any detail like this? Can you type that in, April? Nationwide did not provide a room by room, just totals. Okay, Naria, this is a huge problem. And because you're going to have a tough time going through and correcting it. And I would really, what I would recommend, if any of you, and it does seem to be nationwide, what I would do is write a very short email to Nationwide and say, look, thanks for the estimate. Thanks for the partial payment. Please provide me with a room by room estimate. Okay? Because there is no way for me being you, to check your scope to make sure it matches my house. I have no way of doing this, because if you have, some lines that talk about, 5,000 square feet of drywall, where is it? I mean, do all the rooms add up to 5,000 square feet? But if you know, for instance, that your pantry was 7 foot 8 inches by 7 feet, okay, it was this big, this is how they calculate the wall. It auto calculates. So Narina, you're going to have a tough time today. It's not, I'm sorry to say, you're probably not going to be able to do what everybody who has the broken out scope. So I would write to them. And Jeff didn't receive a room by room estimate. Jeff, what did you receive? Oh, he has nationwide too. Oh my gosh. Okay.
And Jessica has State Farm, and she did not have a room by room either.
And Jessica, what did you get? Did you guys get nothing? And I see April's all state.
April's was odd in that they gave her details on other structures, but not the home. And
they just paid
her out
right.
the full amount. Yeah.
They just paid the
yeah, because
okay.
obviously
well, you guys can, thank you, thanks. Yeah, Jessica has a difficult adjuster. Okay, so this is what I would do for you people who don't have estimates. I would complain to the Department of Insurance and just simply say this: give us a detailed room by room estimate, because we have no way of knowing whether this estimate reflects the home we lost, which is what you owe. And then if they refuse, go to the Department of Insurance. I'm going to tell you guys that the Department of Insurance just is either just finished or still involved in a market conduct survey of nationwide. So they're going to pay attention if you threaten to go to the Department of Insurance. They're in a little bit of hot water for some things. So you guys are more than welcome to watch what we're doing. So if you get one, a preliminary conceptual estimate. Oh my God. Let's just, Jeffrey got a preliminary conceptual estimate. I can't even, I don't even know what that is, Jeffrey, sorry. I can drop off the Zoom if I get my one question answered about building a 1-story instead of a 2-story. Does the contractor first? So Narina, so you still need to know what it would have cost to rebuild the home you lost. Okay, that determines your budget. From there, you can build how many ever stories you want, but they only owe you what it costs to rebuild what you lost, which is why we're doing this, so that you can, you can get what you need. So that is the answer to your question there. Hold on. Okay. Okay, Susan has a room by room estimate. Okay, so all of you people, quantity, unit, tax, O&P. Okay, Martha has exactly. Depreciation, we'll talk about depreciation later, or go to our website and look up, we have a document there that's called Depreciation Basics. They owe you actual cash value until the house is repaired or replaced. So they are allowed to depreciate certain items that wear out. Okay, so that is why, and that's limited replacement cost. Elfie, that's the same thing. It's just replacement cost less depreciation. That's just how they, if you read it, that's just how they settle the claims. So you guys, it doesn't matter today that you don't have this scope of loss. If you're ready to dig into this project and you feel like you have a decent relationship with your adjuster, call them up, ask them to produce this. I'll show you how it's done. So you can, if they don't know how, you can just tell them. But you can work off of an estimate like this with all of these in here, and I'm going to show you how. So what I want you guys to do, yeah, William's saying no room by room estimate from farmers. Can we provide plans and then do details of materials with them? Yes, that's what you need to do. Matt says Kevin says it seems worth noting that some items such as blind light fixtures might have been claimed on the contents inventory. Is there an advantage on claiming in the bucket A versus bucket C? Technically, Kevin, anything that's permanently attached to the building is part of the building. So light fixtures should be coverage A. Window coverings that are, screwed to the building are coverage A. There's a few things that they might let you go back and forth with, and that would just depend on if you have more, like say you have more contents limits available, all of that. Then you can move it to the other one. Anne saying, where do I find the survey for nationwide? Trouble finding it on the commissioners. It's not on the website, Anne. It's the market conduct survey. It's internal. So it is not on their website. Martha says, follow up to my prior question. All conditions are marked average. Can you explain how that's determined since the entire house burned down? Okay, I'm going to do it quickly, but depreciation is something, go and read, like I said, the depreciation basics, what do we call it, document on our website. If you put it in the little search bar, it'll come up. Go ahead.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, she'll put it in the chat, but it's basically based on age and condition, and depreciation is completely negotiable. Okay, don't worry about depreciation today. It doesn't matter. You get to recover it later. If you think they're depreciating too much, you have to go back line by line and talk with them about why. Like, I have a example that I use in webinars. It applies the same for contents as it does for buildings. It's the age and condition and life expectancy of the item. So if two people go out and buy the exact same couch on the exact same day, so grandma who lives alone buys the same couch that the president of a fraternity house buys. So they buy the same $2,000 couch. They take them to their places. Grandmother puts it in her living room, which, the grandkids aren't allowed to play in. And it's only for, her guests. And, the frat house takes it to the frat house and they have beer keg parties on it. So the fact that a couch is 5 years old at the end of a 5-year period, grandma's couch and the frat house couch are going to be worth two different amounts. So you can argue condition and use of your item. The only thing they should be able to depreciate on your building estimate is things that wear out: roofing, flooring, carpets, paint, those type of things. They shouldn't be depreciating framing, concrete, or anything like that. So that's all I'm going to be able to say about depreciation today. Okay, so what I want you guys to do, we're going to take a little break here. I'm going to give it's been 1 hour and 10 minutes. I'm going to give you guys time to get your estimates, and I will talk about where you can find a contractor to do an estimate for you. So I'm gonna do 5 minutes and then find your estimate, locate your room, the room you are most familiar with in your house. That is the simplest room. Don't start with the kitchen, okay? And then I'll just be back in a couple minutes, and I'll try to answer some of these questions after I run to the ladies' room. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, so hopefully I'm going to get going again. And shoot, Jacqueline, I'm looking at your question here. Where, of course, my brain is like cheese. Oh, so you're in Colorado. State Farm policy, 2 years to rebuild from October. It's already 3 months has gone by. You know what I would do, Jacqueline, is write to them and say, look, you only give us 2 years to rebuild and 3 months has gone by and you haven't given us an estimate yet. A lot of times, and I'm not sure about Colorado, we're going to do some Q&As for Colorado where we're going to have Colorado experts. I'm a California person. But in some states, there's something called equitable tolling. And I'm not sure, Carrie, if you know about tolling in Colorado, chime in, but in California and a lot of other states, it's called tolling, which means that the time it's taking them to write the estimate stops the clock on those different time limits. So they can't necessarily penalize you for their delays. So the first thing I would do, Jacqueline, she's saying that, you know, it's been 3 months and she doesn't have an estimate and she's concerned about the 2-year time frame and winter. So I would write to them, say, you know, express your concerns, put your concerns in writing, make sure they're on the record, and find out if there's tolling in your area, which just means that the clock stops while you're waiting for them.
Sandy? In general, what we have been telling people effectively is to write your, like you say, write your insurer and to document what the date is and the fact you haven't received it, and then ask them for an 1-year extension now, you know, ahead of time, and get their answer on that to get it in writing.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. And ask them, you know, I always like saying, what do you need in order to complete this estimate? Is there anything I can provide to you that will get this estimate faster? And go from there. Yeah, April says her adjuster told her his scope was based on the residential valuation tool. Yes, that means he doesn't have detail, April. That is true. So the residential valuation tool is pretty useless in mine. Okay, so we're going to go through this exercise, and then I'll answer some of these other questions. Hold on, Sebastian says, my insurer gave an initial low estimate with instructions to submit construction bids if costs exceeded their estimate. If they agree to exceed the first payment, would they normally pay out more right away or agree to pay more at a later date? Usually they need, Sebastian, some sort of documentation, another estimate, you correcting the estimate, and things like that. April asked, will the insurance company always accept and agree to an estimate we provide from someone else? Who should it come from? A contractor, a licensed estimator? They need to be licensed, whoever does it, you know, they need to be a contractor. Some of the companies don't always accept the estimates, but April, I know you're in California. There is a code that says they are required to do an adjustment of the estimate. So if they push back, I wouldn't worry about it unless they just don't accept it. Don't try to have a problem before it happens. But if they do push back, then go, you know, come back and I'll tell you how to deal with that. Don't we have to do the room by room details before the insurer can give us the estimate? Yes, William. William's asking, don't we have to do the room by room details first before the insurer can give us an estimate? Yes. And so in general, this webinar, when you signed up, it said, you know, have your estimate. You can get some benefit out of this if you don't have it yet, but yes. I mean, it's going to help you, because if you are watching this, then you're going to know what you need to get to where you're going in terms of telling your adjuster what your room had. But yes, that is what you need. So, okay. So what I'm going to do now is go to your estimate for your bedroom. Okay, and let's just go through this step by step. Okay, so like I said, I like to be systematic. Of course, I tell you it starts from the ceiling down. This one happens to go from the floor up. Doesn't much matter. I always say that I can tell personally how good the estimator is by how systematic they are in their estimate. So if you're dealing with somebody who has like ceiling, light fixture, floor covering, outlet, window, you know, if you have something like that, you know that you're dealing with somebody who is not a systematic estimator. And in most cases, they're going to need to fix it. Hold on really quickly. A basic question: is the extended limit and code upgrade additional money above the total dwelling coverage? I've already been paid my maximum for my dwelling coverage. Yes, extended limit is additional. Code upgrade can be additional, or it can be within coverage A, but yes, those are additional amounts. And Jennifer, that's the number one thing I see all the time, is that people don't know that their extended replacement cost is an additional amount, and they think they're stuck with the amount they have. So you need to look at your policy. Okay, so back to what we're doing here. Let me tell you that Xactimate defaults ceiling height at 8 feet. Okay, this house that I did a while back had 10 and a half foot ceilings. So the first thing is, be on the lookout if you have higher than 8 foot ceilings, or if you have like vaulted ceilings. This is where that goes. Okay, hopefully your adjuster's estimate has dimensions. Okay, these are, what is the dimensions? I chose a nice simple room, and I'm going to show you some others. I'm going to go live onto Xactimate in a minute and show you some things, but okay, so for all you people who are asking about a list of contractors, I do have a list. We do have them on the website. I'm going to show that to you later. Under insurance questions, I'm not going to be able to take today. You need to go to the under insurance. We're just going to deal with these estimates. We're getting a little off track. So look at this, look at your room, go to the room that you're in, and think about how big it is. Think about, you know, large, medium, small. People have different abilities to estimate distances and measurements. So you know, just do the best you can. Do the best you can if this is all you have. So look and see if your room dimensions are generally correct. Okay. This is, and then what happens is, when this room is 7 foot 8 inches by 7 inches, they have a little, this is the door. There's no windows in this room. I used a really simple room for the example, but you have a door. How wide is the door? You know, one of the ways to do it is you can take a room like where you're living now and try to, you know, measure it, find out what size it is. You can use that as a, you know, relative scale. Measure the doorway width. Is it a standard doorway width? Is it narrow, or did you have wider doors? Things like that. Okay. So then what you need to do, Robert's asking about waste. Waste is calculated in Xactimate automatically, and I'll show you some of this. So what I want you guys to do, where is my forwardy? Where is my forwardy thing here? Whoops. I've lost control of my screen. Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to go through some of the things you're not going to understand. Okay. For instance, underlayment. Know that under vinyl flooring, there's usually some particle board under there to make it stick. And then there's some floor preparation. Don't worry too much about things like underlayment or floor prep that you don't understand, because some of those will work themselves out. What kind of flooring did you have? Okay. How was it? Do you know how it was put on? what size is your baseboard? Look at this. This, they have 8-inch baseboard, but this house actually had 12-inch. This was an old, beautiful home with foot-high compound baseboard, okay? Texture on the drywall, all of that. Try to mark it up. Saying if you've made significant upgrades over the course of 30 years, can you indicate that? Yes, you want to reflect your house exactly as it existed prior to the fire. So whatever you did, be a little careful because a lot of the policies have something in the extended replacement cost that says if you do something that's $5,000 or more or adds to the square footage of the building and don't tell them within 90 days, that sometimes your extended replacement coverage doesn't apply. I've only seen that happen once, but when it does, it's devastating, okay? So what I'm gonna do now, you guys, I want you guys to be marking up your estimates. So what I want now is questions about marking up your estimates. So if you want to type in Q&A or if you want to raise your hand, let's get some questions about marking up your estimates and whether you understand what I'm trying. I just want to make sure you know what I'm trying to do. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Xactimate and show you different things and why it matters, okay? So if you have any questions, can you repeat that? What am I supposed to repeat? And I'm not sure what I'm supposed to repeat. And if you can tell me what I'm supposed to repeat, I've got a load of questions sitting here, so I'm not sure what it is. Okay, so I'm going to stop this. I'm going to go grab another screen. I'm going to have to sign on to Xactimate. So work on that room that you're in. Oh, the part about replacement cost being void. Yes, don't freak out too much, but there is a policy provision in some policies that say that if you make improvements worth more than $5,000, or if you add to the square footage of the building, you have to tell them within 90 days of improving the house, or the extended replacement cost coverage may not apply. Okay, so, and that's from the time you took out the policy. So I would not, I would just focus on what you had on the date of loss, because that's what you're entitled to. Room dimensions in your example are exact finish numbers. So Robert, obviously you're in the building trades. I can tell by your waist and your building dimensions. So if you look at this, Robert, and you look at the measurements here, the 7'8" is on the inside. This 8'2" is the outside dimension of the room. And Xactimate automatically accounts for the size of the framing lumber that you use. So it adds it on. So it's automatically done for you. Okay, so you guys keep marking up your estimates, and I'm gonna go dip out here for a minute, sign into Xactimate because it kicks me out after a few minutes, and then reshare my screen here. Being very slow. Little mice are thinking. And I'm going to apologize in advance. Xactimate is made for a Windows program, and I have a Mac. So I have to use a little bridge Internet Explorer situation. So it looks a little bit funky, but you'll get the picture. Okay. So I'm going to pull up. Okay, I'm going to go back to screen sharing with you guys. Okay, so hopefully you can all see this. Let me know if you can't. This is Exactament, okay? This is just sort of a control center dashboard where the estimates that I work on are in here. I have a sample, it's a workshop. I'm going to go through some of these things that you need to look at, okay? And I want to go through them live just so that you can sort of see some differences, okay? So you want to make sure that things are proper in terms of your date of loss, your property address, things like that, okay? A lot of the policies, you're not going to see it like this. I'm going to show you. You're going to see it like this in a final draft. So this screen right here, roughly, and then Val and Carrie, if my screens don't look like they're matching up, just let me know, because I'm always weird about the screen sharing.
Will do.
Okay, so when you're looking at the front of you, this is an estimate. This is a final draft of an estimate that I did, okay? So when you're looking at this, it should look somewhat similar. The carriers have, you know, huge paragraphs of disclaimer information that they put on here. But what you want to look at is your address and so forth, the date of loss, the date. This right here is really important. This is the price list, okay? If you look at, you can see a date. This is a November 18th. I just happened to use a campfire date of loss on this. And I used the price list from the date of loss. Policies are different, okay? Some policies say that you have to go by the price list, that the cost to rebuild on the date of loss. Some of them go by, what you want is you want them for the date of the rebuild, okay? So this basically is the same as this, okay? So that's what this is how it looks to the estimator, and this is how it looks to you when you get it, okay? So I'm just gonna go through some of these. One of the things, hopefully your adjuster has provided you with a sketch of the property. This is a sketch. See, different sizes. Let me move it so you guys can see it a little bit better. It is, like I said, it's a little buggy because I'm doing different things. But if you look, this is the idea. And so when you click on this, this is how they get their measurements. So they can move walls. You can, like, if I'll show you here, you can move this wall. See this patio? This is 8 foot 9 inches from the back wall of the house to here. And if the policyholder comes back and said, no, it went all the way to the corner of that bedroom, then all the adjuster has to do is pull it out. And now, whoopsie, pull it out and put it right there. So now the patio is the correct size. So this is how they correct, when you send it in, this is how they correct the estimate, okay? And this is how the dimensions sort of go into the estimate, okay? When you get into the actual line items, this is how it works. Let me drag this down. Like I said, and then some of this is just for, general purposes, so you know what they're dealing with. But if you have here, you have all the rooms. So the main level, and I usually like to start at the front, front porch, great room, hall, bath. You do the roof. Sometimes it's nice to do the roof separately. It needs to happen that way. Foundation. So hopefully your adjuster's estimate is lined out sort of like this. What I want to show you, okay, let's go to the master bedroom, okay, because that's what I asked you guys to do. Okay, let me show you. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Show you how things change, okay? So you can see and I'm sorry if this is a little bit small, but for instance, here is this baseboard. Trying to make it a little bit bigger for you. Sometimes these windows are tough. Okay, let's talk about doorknobs. Wait, where did I come on? Here's a doorknob right here. So when you talk about doorknobs, we will talk about how much it is. Okay, so this one's a $42 doorknob. This was a really expensive house. The adjusters, and some of them don't know this, they can click on and find out what's going on. So you can choose doorknob interior. You can choose, they have different, find door H. Okay. These are all the different doorknobs that they have to choose from. So if you've got a lock set that's a premium exterior, actually they cost more than that. Sometimes the price list is limited. So like say for instance, if you know that you spent $300 on your exterior lock set, you can tell them that. Because Xactimate really only has what is standard for the area. This happens to be a price list for Butte County, California in 2018. So it's a little lower. I'm sorry. I kind of mix things up a little bit. So I used a price list from Butte County and I used some estimating for different types of houses, but you guys get the idea. So the difference between a regular, so when it just says doorknob interior, that just means regular. Okay. That's most standard. Standard grade actually means lower grade. Okay. So if you see standard grade, that's usually what we call apartment grade. And then you have high grade, premium grade, deluxe grade. So you can see the difference. So if you had really super duper deluxe doorknobs, it changes the price. So right now this is at $42. When you add the overhead and profit, it's $52. But if you change it to a deluxe grade, it brings it up to $115. And it changes everything. Okay. So this is why even things like doorknobs are important. Okay. The same thing goes, and I wanted to show you, this also. Okay. So when you go to deluxe grade, it gives you it gives the adjusters, I'm going to sneeze here. Sorry. Little pictures, like mine are sort of like this, except it's a straight handle, but they can click for detail. Okay, and come on. It's going to tell you what's included in that. These are called line items. Okay, and we don't have to get too deep into it, but Xactimate, when it puts an item like a doorknob, it not only does the material cost, but it does the cost to install it. Okay, and if they click on that detail, it'll tell you it includes the interior door lock set or passage set and installation labor. Okay, and this is the quality: heavyweight construction with lever or knob, deluxe grade finishes like oil rubbed or Venetian bronze or highly detailed, 20-year life expectancy. This gives them some idea of depreciation. This is not written in stone. Do not ever let an adjuster tell you that you're stuck with the Xactimate's depreciation. Okay, so that will tell you what's included. That'll tell the adjuster what's included. So sometimes we have to point that out to them. So if you take the room that we have here, and if we do a few changes, then you'll see, like, okay, let's go here. And I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but see this right here? This master bedroom is estimated at $9,854.92. Okay, that's where we're starting. So if I go through and I say, oh, okay, we have, let me see here, carpet, windows. I wanted to find outlets, television, things like, okay, this is important too. Things like sorry, and this jumps around, so I apologize. Oh, here's the outlets and switches. So if they have 6, but say you have 2 on each wall, so we would have 2, 4, 6, 8. So right now we've got 6 outlets and it's $77.70. If we go to 8 and get it right, we go back to now $125. So do you see how adding 2 outlets is important? And say if you have a switch, so this is 2 switches. The other thing is, like, don't just, so there's a difference between a switch and a 3-way switch. Okay. So in this one, we have 2 regular switches, okay, which are $13 each. Here's the detail. oh, well, let's say we have like Lutron switches. So we can go here and they have different switches, high grade. So let's go with the high grade. And then they have 3-way, 4-way, a door jamb switch. I don't even know what that is. But say we have the high grade switch. Let's see what that is. What makes up a high grade switch? Click for detail. It includes switch, the cover, installation, labor. So this is a vinyl cover. So if you have, like, say, some people have fancy metal covers, some people have wooden covers, different things. So those, I mean, we're just using this as an example to show you the difference. So now we've gotten it up. So this is it. So what I'm trying to illustrate is that different things make a difference. Door casing, if you have casing, this is casing around the doors. MDF stands for medium density fiberboard. So that means that press board stuff. Well, if you had hardwood casing, there's a huge difference between fiberboard, press board casing and hardwood. So we go CS. C5 casing. So see the difference between hardwood and fiberboard is right there. So that is what we do. And as we change it, it changes the amounts. Okay. And as we change the room sizes, it changes the amounts. So those are really, really important things. Let me just look real quick at our questions. I don't know why the questions are not coming up for me right now.
So Sandy, let me give you, Robert has one. He said,
Okay.
I can get, hold on. Let me jump to door jam switches, mount inside the door, turn on the light, off when it closes. So does it have that kind of nuance on there?
Yeah, it does. If you had a door jamb switch. I've just never seen one of those before. So yeah, and for some reason, Val, I can't see for some reason my questions aren't popping up because of my screen share.
They're probably over on another screen. Let me just start here in the bottom. Vic says pricing list, date of loss or date of rebuild, which does State Farm go with? Is it worth battling over?
It is worth battling over. In general, State Farm should go on the rebuild date. So let's do that for fun. Okay, let's do that. Let me show you. Let me pull this down. Let's do that for fun. I'm not grabbing things here. Hold on. Submit item, claim info. Okay, so claim info, coverage loss, parameters. Okay, so here's the price list. Okay, so this is for this. It's just a code based on the zip code. Let me get this out of the way here. So what we do here is I can choose. So let's look at the bottom. So if you look right down here, look at our grand total, $631,963. Okay. So that's using this price list. Now we're going to go here and we are going to jump to, what do I have? So the way that Xactimate works is that it only lets you use ones from the right area. So the newest ones I have from that area, let's just go to January 2019. Otherwise I have to download the price list. And the other thing is the tax. If you saw right below that, there's tax. Make sure your tax jurisdiction is right because 1%, 2% is a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to reprice this estimate. I'm just going to let it do this, and now watch what happens. So I write it down, 631,903. Okay, so this one, when I repriced it with this new price list, now these aren't too far apart. This is November 2018 to January 2019, but it raised it $8,000. Okay, so that is showing you what the different price list is. Tax jurisdiction, you can type in the taxes. Let's see, the zip code of where you are. Pull it up, it'll pull it up. Let's see, come on, taxes. So this is all of it. So they can reprice it based on taxes. So say it's 975. Okay. And it reprices it. 631. 903. So that's so that you can see that was almost an $8,000 difference in the estimate. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a few things in terms of reports that can give you an idea what if you guys don't have any questions specifically on changing your things and your items and the importance, I'm going to show you the reports that they're able to run for you. Okay, so if your adjuster says, I don't know what you mean by a scope of loss report, you can tell them that you just go to the drop down list and report. So it's right here and it says scope. So I'm going to run a few of these and show you the differences. They take a second. Something happened on that. Hold on.
Sandy, while you're doing that, Jennifer asked the question, if you do not rebuild, but you purchased another home, can you still argue the date of loss estimate?
Yep, you can argue anything at any time. The worst they can say is no. Know that if you've already bought a house to replace the house you lost, you're not going to get any more than what you actually spent. So hopefully, I saw a lot of people who thought that they only had X amount of money and bought a house. The other thing though that you can do is use it to upgrade your house. And like say for instance, you can put the money into like redoing the kitchen. A lot of the insurance companies get kind of crazy about that. If you're in Colorado, it might be a little bit different, but in California, you can use, if you left any money on the table between the amount it cost to rebuild the home you lost and the amount you actually spent for the replacement house, you can take that money and put it into the new house and collect your replacement cost benefits. Okay.
Sandy?
Yeah.
And depending on the policy, I mean, there's no guidance for that from the state in Colorado. However, depending on the policy, sometimes it's just a question, as with most things, of the home you lost, of determining the rebuild of the home you lost and going from there. I've seen people successfully get the code upgrades and extensions and things like that to apply to building elsewhere or to buying a newer home. It's just varies. So it's definitely worth a try.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we talk about, and one of the things that I noticed since I've been here at UP for the last 3 years, is that people will write to me and say, can I use the money I left on the table to upgrade my house? I'm like, well, what'd your adjuster say? A lot of times people don't. You should talk to your adjuster, work with them, ask them the questions. They need to explain it to you in a way that makes it understandable to you. And if they're not explaining it properly, then make them re-explain it. Ask them to put it in writing, put things in writing. But yeah, most of the time, it never hurts to ask. So anyway, this is just the scope that I created, and that's how I did it. It's a drop-down list. Literally, if you called your adjuster and they know how to use Xactimate, they could email that to you within 30 seconds, okay? One of the things you want to look at is, and then I failed to mention before, this is the date that the estimate was printed and produced. So that's how you keep track of which one you're working with. You want to go by the newest one on the date, okay? So, and then I already pulled up a final draft. This is a final draft. There are also rough draft ones. So what I want to show you is, this is one thing you want to ask for. It's at the end here. And this is going to help you farther down the road. It's going to help your contractor when it's time to do an estimate. Say you get everything fixed and this estimate now matches your home you lost. Where am I? Now you need to ask them to produce, this is a recap by room. You need to ask them for what's called a recap by category. Okay. And what this shows is how much is allotted to each trade. And this is really helpful. This is how most contractors produce, they price them out however they price them out, and it doesn't matter. Don't let your adjuster tell you that the contractor needs to use Xactimate or any other form. They're allowed to produce their estimate in any form that works. The only caveat is that the adjuster needs enough information to do a comparison and to find out where the differences are, excuse me. So once you get your estimate created and all of those pages, and what I recommend you do for this is just do, it's you know, how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Do your master bedroom, do the corrections, do as much as you can, and then set it aside, and then come back and do another room and set it aside, and then mark it on up, send it to your adjuster with an email that said, thank you for your estimate. I have reviewed it. There are several items in here that do not reflect what I actually lost. I am correcting the estimate to reflect what I actually lost and request that you update the estimate with my changes. Send it to them. In California, then they have 30 days to pay it or deny it, or tell you, or 40 days, I'm sorry, to pay it or deny it, or let you know what they want. Carrie, I don't know what Colorado is. Usually they say reasonable time. So what you have here is this, once it's corrected, once they've sent it back and you're like, okay, this estimate reflects my house, then ask them to produce a recap by category. And I'll show you, it is simply a tick box. So when it's time to do the final draft, okay, they hit final draft, and there's all these tick boxes, and recap by category is one of them. You also would like the sketch. So these are things, and so this is how easy it is for these guys to produce these for you. So don't, you know, don't get into the idea that they can't do it. So when you get this, this is an excellent tool for when you get your contractor's bid and you can look and see and say, hey, look, roofing, this estimate has, and my eyes aren't very good, $30,396 for roofing, and my contractor has $40,000 for roofing. What's the deal? So then you can just go through and figure out which items are the ones where there's a big difference. Have your contractor, what I like to do, what I suggest people do, is get this and block out the totals and ask your contractor to give you a bid. You know, try to get the scope. Okay, try to get this to give to your contractor, because as you can see, this is a very valuable document for you to hand to your contractor. I prefer to give the contractors the scope without the prices so that they can bid it based upon what they think the cost is. Okay. Sometimes if you give it to them with the pricing, it's not like a huge deal, but if you give it to them with the pricing, they get caught up they worry about the difference in pricing. And what you want them to do is give you a true and accurate bid. So if you ask once you've got it corrected, ask your adjuster for a scope, which is a estimate without the prices, and then ask them for a final draft that includes a trade breakdown. Give your contractor the scope, okay, and give them this trade breakdown. I like to put a piece of paper over this, block it out, and say, when you do your estimate, I don't care how you do it, can you give me the prices based upon these trades here, so that my insurance adjuster can go back and look at apples to apples. Okay, does that make sense to you guys?
Andy, let me give you a couple of questions.
Okay, sure.
One is simple. Does State Farm use Xactimate?
Yes.
Okay. Gary said his rebuild plan only includes part of the driveway, not the front walkway. Should all of it be in the plan since it's damaged?
So remember to separate what is coverage A dwelling structure and what is dwelling extension. So a lot of times driveways are dwelling extensions, okay, or other structures. It's usually a coverage B item. So what happens is a coverage B is often, most of the time, 10%. It's an automatic 10% of your coverage A limit. If you have a lot of outbuildings, and your agent should have asked you this, you might have needed to increase it. A lot of times you can increase it, but what happens is if you only have that 10% coverage and it's low, then they don't bother to estimate it. They estimate it until they hit the limit and can pay you that maximum amount, and then they stop. So that could be why it's not on there. I'm also going to say, if you decide to pay for a scope or an estimate, and you've already been paid for dwelling extension and trees, shrubs, and plants, make sure to tell your estimator or your contractor not to estimate that, because most of the time it's a percentage of what they estimate. So there's no sense. If you've reached your limit for trees, shrubs, and plants and dwelling extension, or other structures, then you don't need them to write you anything. You just need the dwelling itself. So stick with just that. But as far as the question that you just read, Val, the reason that they didn't, that probably the reason they didn't put the driveway is that you hit the limit. If you haven't hit the limit, then you should add that on with your little red pen to your estimate and include it. Anything that they've left off, it goes without saying, I haven't said it, but anything that they've left off the estimate, put it on there. And I mean, I've talked to people who they've left off entire rooms. She's like, I have a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, and somehow I got a 2-bedroom, 1-bath estimate. So, I mean, there's people that leave off whole rooms. So look at that.
Actually, I have a question about that. Let me run through these others because Robert and Sue have been waiting a bit. Robert is with California Fair Plan. First simple question, do they use Xactimate?
Usually, yes.
Okay, and then he says they told him they'll only take the bid of the general contractor he's going to use, but he can get three bids. And so can they do that?
No, that's untrue, Robert. They cannot. So if you guys are in California, there is something called the California Fair Claims Settlement Practices Regulations. And if you can Google it. The Department of Insurance has the whole regulations there. If you go to 2695.9 and scroll down, it says that if the insurance company gives you an estimate, or if they hire somebody to write you an estimate, it's the same thing, and the policyholder turns in an estimate that's higher, there are 3 options, okay? The first option is to pay the difference between the insurance company estimate and the customer estimate. The second option, and I do not recommend it, is if the policyholder asks, that's you, they have to produce a contractor that will rebuild your home for their price that's, you know, licensed and blah, 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 blah. They have to produce somebody who can do it for their amount, okay? I only recommend that in last ditch efforts. The third item, and that's the one that's most common, and it's the one that they don't know about. It's very interesting. But the third one is do a reasonable adjustment of the insured's estimate, which means line by line, okay? Line by line. This is a 45-page estimate. They need to do every line. And provide the policyholder with a copy of that adjusted estimate. So basically what they would do is and so there's nothing that says, they cannot make your contractor submit it in any specific form. It just has to be something that they can see the prices for each thing. They can't do, you know, and when I was an adjuster, we used to have a joke and it was like remove and replace one house, $500,000. It can't be like that. They have to be able to support how they got to their numbers, but how they reflect that support of their numbers doesn't matter. And they cannot force you to only show your contractor's estimate. So push back on that. You can submit 1, you can submit 3, and go from there. So hopefully that answers that.
That answers that one. Sue had a question. Property is remotely located, so obviously it's going to be additional charges for delivery of materials and travel for contractors and subs. And should that be included in the scope of work?
Yep.
All
Yep.
right. Sebastian.
Let me add something to that to you guys. There's a bunch of COVID requirements now through Cal OSHA, temperature checks of people. So there's a thermometer that you need, a hand washing station that needs to go out in front of the property, and PPE for people. So also COVID required and OSHA required safety gear can be added. Okay, go ahead.
And can I just ask, Sandy, do you think that would go under code upgrade, or would that just be under the normal settlement?
No, code upgrades is only really for the things that you're adding to the house to bring it up to current codes. Those things
I
are
wondered about that.
like overhead, like OSHA requirements.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so should well and septic repair be included in the dwelling coverage?
You know, those are things that you can talk to your adjuster about. It kind of goes back and forth. So one of the things is, what is the definition of other structures or dwelling extensions under your policy? Most of them say we cover, you know, other structures on your property separated by clear space. And if it's just a utility line, it can be another structure. The sewer line is kind of big, you know, going to a septic tank. So I've seen insurance companies go either way. If your insurance company is doing the right thing, they should put it in the category that you have some money left. Like, so say you have some dwelling extension money left that you haven't accounted for yet, and but you're full on your house, then, you know, work with them. It can go either way. That's the long answer. Usually it's dwelling extension, but ask.
Okay, let me run through these other pretty quick. My estimate used the date October 2020. We'll rebuild mid 2021. What date do we want to use for the estimate?
You got to use now. They can't, there's no projected estimates. I mean, price list, no projected price list.
All right, next one. What category of your coverages do architectural, structural engineering, civil engineering, all those fees all fall into?
Coverage A dwelling, just part of the rebuild cost. Also, don't let your adjuster tell you that architectural and engineering and things like that, or they call them soft costs. Don't let them tell you that they're only paid as incurred, because that's not true. Hopefully Nationwide's done with that. They were explained, but those are all part of the rebuild cost of your home and should be included in the regular. Also permits.
That gets into code upgrades. Are those also paid later? Ann's adjuster is telling her that.
Code upgrades, and there's a little bit of debate, but in general, they're paid when incurred, which means either spent, or if your building department tells you you need to do it, then they should pay it then.
Okay, and then Adam, Christopher just popped in that State Farm is telling him soft costs are only paid as incurred. And so just to clarify, that is, you just said that.
That is not correct. Ask him to show you where it says that in the policy. So that's an adjuster being lazy, because, you know, what I would do in response to that is get an estimate from an architect and an engineer, and submit it. Because they are a little bit hard to estimate. It depends on the house you're building. Remember, it's for the house you lost. They're just being lazy. It's part of the replacement cost. There's nowhere in the policy that says, you know, soft costs. It's ridiculous. So no, they're wrong.
Okay, and I've got a question from William. Sorry, but it's still not clear how the insurer has an estimate first, that then we get a detailed bid to present and compare. How in the world does the insurer have all this information before we've done the work with our contractor and estimator? It seems like the cart before the horse.
Well, they should have asked you, and they should be working with you to get this information to do the best that they can up front. So you're right in a way that it will be continue to be refined as you're working with your builder. But you should have had like a 4-hour conversation with your adjuster about what your house looked like and what building materials went into it.
And then last question, that's not one of the old ones we had about finding professional help. Gary says his replacement cost totals is much more than his settlement check amount. And the question is why?
Most likely they stopped the payment at the coverage A limit, and or they took a lot of depreciation. So, and this is really interesting. I've been doing surveys of attorneys, California attorneys, and I'm getting all sorts of different answers on this. And it's a little bit esoteric, but I'll explain it to you. The insurance code in California for 2020 losses says that the insurance company owes you the amount that it costs to replace your house. They can take depreciation until you replace it. So it's actual cash value is replacement cost less depreciation up to the policy limit. A lot of the insurance companies have been using coverage A limit as the whole policy limit. I personally disagree with that. I think they owe actual cash value up front. And I'm getting different opinions from different attorneys whether or not they can stop the payment at coverage A. So some of them are saying, well, the limit's coverage A limit is A, that's it. They have to spend it to get their extended replacement cost. I do not think that the code allows for that. My opinion is, I'm not an attorney, handle a lot of claims, is that they have to pay you the whole ACV. Some companies are doing that, some aren't. So my guess is why yours is so much less is that they stopped at the coverage A limit. So Linda, I'm going to direct you the code upgrade cost. I'm not sure where you're located. If you're in California, you need to get a bid for the cost to bring the house you lost up to code, and that goes into your bucket of money to buy a new house. We do have a buy versus rebuild webinar that's recorded that goes into, and I really recommend you guys watch that. I think it's on our YouTube channel. If you can't find it on the YouTube channel, it's called Buy versus Rebuild, and it's California, so I apologize for that.
I've got, Sandy, I've got the link to the video went in the chat to everybody to show them where to go for all the videos. Okay,
perfect. So that, Linda, will go into it. I am not sure on Colorado what happens there. Keep it for if you're from Colorado, bring it to the Q&A and we will get that question answered for you with Colorado law. And your architect costs are listed as open. That means that they're being too lazy to estimate them. So my suggestion would be to get a bid and send it into them and say it's part of the actual cash value to, part of the replacement cost to rebuild my home, pay me for it. Okay, any of you who have open items for those things, a lot of people bypass that. And the adjuster will say, oh, well, we'll pay it when it's incurred. Well, A, there's nothing in the policy that says that. And B, it makes them missed, because then they'll say, oh, well, you bought a house, so you didn't incur any architect costs. But that's sort of true. And people say, oh, okay, well, that's right. So I guess I'm not entitled to that. The architectural and engineering fees are part of the replacement cost determination of rebuilding your house. So those are things that you're owed as part of ACV. They can't depreciate them. And so you need to get those in there. Okay, what I'm going to show you guys next, and we've been here for 2 hours, so we're going to start wrapping it up. I'm going to show you where to find the list of contractors to write a scope of the ones that we have. You can use other people if you want, but I'm going to show you. And let me get to the page and then I'll share here.
And Sandy, just to clarify, in California, we have more options than Colorado.
Yep.
So in Colorado, you're typically looking at contractors who have the expertise and who understand their building, creating an estimate for your as-was house, not the house that you're planning to build once you finish this. So just wanted to clarify that for people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And that is true. Okay, so here's our homepage. I'm going to just go through a few things with you. Disaster recovery help. Here's where you can generally find things. Sometimes they disappear because there's only 4 here. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine. If your disaster disappears, you can go up to resources, disaster recovery help. No, wrong one. See, sorry, disaster recovery help. And it's going to list. So if you've got a coronavirus, Colorado, California. Okay. So that's that. If you're looking for help, go to find help, professional help directory. Okay. It's going to put you to a map of the United States. I'm going to click on California. Then you can sort. These are all of our sponsors in California. There's kind of a lot of them. We're located in San Francisco, so we tend to focus a little bit. Okay. If you want an attorney, you can sort by attorney. It gives you what their specialty is listed there. You have to click in to find out where they're located, but you can do that. Also, if you want, excuse me, let me find it. Where is it? Loss estimator appraiser. I always kind of think we should do something different on that. So if you want an estimator, so these are people who are paid to write estimates that go through the insurance company. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 here. I recommend calling all of them. Okay, talk to them. People have different personalities. These guys are located in different areas. All of these people write all of California, but you just click on it. It'll give you a name. You can just call them, even if they're, in a different part of the state. Don't worry about that. If you want to go here, let's go back here, Colorado. Whoop, 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 whoop. Colorado, you got to be able to do a geography test. I don't think we have any of them in Colorado. Nope. If you want, you might be able to call the people in California and see if they'll do a Colorado job. I'm not sure if they will or not, but
well, and we're working on some resources for that. Just we're not there yet, but we're working on some working with some of the building professionals to come up with some more options for estimation. Yeah.
Right.
One of the questions popped up, Sandy, you were going to address refrigerators, and that just popped up on the question.
I was not going to address it here. I'm going to
okay. Got it.
I'm going to circle back just for the people who have partial losses, and if your refrigerator claim has been denied. I'm trying to, I've told people I would write them some letters, but I have other people writing letters that are getting no response. It's mainly State Farm. So we're trying to think of a different way. So there's no sense everybody writing letters that don't get any response. So we're working on that. Send me an email and we'll talk. I'm going to do some sort of little thing on that. But okay, so the last thing that I'm going to do, let's go back to my PowerPoint here, and we're just about done. One of the things that we're going to do is we're going to do one of these on and help contractors. So especially for you Colorado people who might not have the same resources in California, we are going to do a workshop. We did it last year for Paradise. It was really pretty well received, but go through this from the contractor's point of view. So if you have a contractor who you're interested in working with, who would like some of this information to do this in a way that's going to be the most beneficial for you, then reach out to us, and we will also put on those pages the date of but Val, do we have a date for the contractor when?
Everything will be posted on the website the beginning of next week. You can't register for them yet. They're set, but you can't register. So I put in the chat the two for California and Colorado where to go to register.
Okay.
And that page will be populated Mondays and holidays, so Tuesday, the end of the day.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. This is just a little reminder that even if you're going to buy instead of rebuild, you need to do all the exact same things that the people who are rebuilding. It seems like duplication of effort, but the only way you're going to know the money that you have to spend if they don't pay you everything straight out is to figure out what they owe you. Okay. These are just best practices. If you can, present your insurer with one or more estimates, try to reach an agreement before you go spending money. Okay. And then once you have the money, then you can go about and build the house you want, buy a replacement house and so forth. Okay. This is just the insurance code. Just you note it down, 2051.5. If you're in California, this is the law that says you get to take all of that with you if you move. You can look that up. If you do look it up, make sure you're looking at the most recent version because there's been a lot of versions. Closing the gap, and I'm just finishing off here. Closing the gap is, just getting the amount of the insurance company closer to what you need. If you need to get the estimates, I like setting up a face-to-face meeting. It's more and more difficult to do. It used to be that your adjuster would come and sit down with you. And then when it was time to go through these, they would sit down with you again. Back in my day when I was, an adjuster, that's what we did. Consider hiring your own expert. Okay. Lessons learned, take your time. Bite it one bit at a time. It's very overwhelming. It's very painful to have to recreate your house. It's like, the contents list. It's like, I've listened to podcasts. Your body doesn't really know the difference between the original trauma and the relived trauma. So cut yourself some slack, and know that this it's not easy, if it makes sense for you, pay off your mortgage so that your mortgage company doesn't have to be named on the check. Know what you're doing before you do that. I talked to some people in my case, the mortgage company forced them to pay it off, but then she was retired and couldn't get another loan. And so talk to a CPA or your tax person or something before you do that. Document everything in writing, keep copies, writing. That's a UP mantra. Okay. If they're telling you no on something, ask them for the specific language supporting the denial. Okay. And then if you're asking for an extension of time, for instance, the gal who was concerned about the 2-year time to rebuild, ask them for an extension and get it in writing. Ask for the extension in writing. Okay. And then it's a lot of times, like if you've got an adjuster telling you ordinance and law is only for partial losses, it's common for them to make mistakes. So be politely persistent, get your facts, ask them to show you where it says it in the policy. Okay. Keep your claim moving forward. You aim to agree on the cost. If problems arise, try to negotiate with them, try to keep the door open. Okay. Know that we have sample letters in our claim file, our web page. You can ask for copies of claim related documents. How you can ask, you're entitled to ask how they calculated your payment. Okay. And then we have a lot of guidance on our website. We have some scoop on scope publications. We have guidelines for reviewing estimates. We have a publication called Exactament Demystified, questions to ask your contractor. That's a really good one. In the Find Help, there are a lot of good things. Like if you feel like you need a public adjuster, there's questions to ask your public adjusters and things like that. So there's samples in our library. Okay, save the date. If you're in California, we're doing a survivor to survivor forum next week, January 19th. And these are people like you who have come through it, gone through what you're going through and come out the other side. January 21st, we're doing an underinsurance. So if you feel like you didn't have enough insurance, I'm going to tell you, try to keep them separate in your head. Your claim is one thing, your underinsurance issue is another thing. I know it's hard to look at it that way, but it's how it needs to be done. If you're in Colorado, the Survivor to Survivor Forum is for everyone. We might have some Oregon and Washington people in there as well. And then we have a Q&A for January 20th. And then we should be putting, if you're from California, We'll be doing a Q&A as well. I'm not sure. I had to.
It'll be the first Wednesday of February. Everything February on will be on the calendar Tuesday.
Okay, yeah. And they had one this last Wednesday, but those are the wildfire Q&As. I do them usually on Wednesday, and you can just come, and I like them, the questions submitted in advance, because I can, do a slide or, prepare the way I roll it out, but you can ask live questions. So it's really nice. We want to thank our funders, the community foundations. These are our Colorado funders. These are the people who are making this possible and making this all free for you guys. I'm going to stop sharing here. Let's see what else we have. We have one question in here. Whoops, we're done. Okay, so it is 12:20, so I went a little bit over. Thank you guys for hanging in for such a long time. It's a lot of subject matter. Like I said, if you have questions, go and sign up for the Q&A. There is a place to submit your question in advance. Submit your question. If you submit your question, we will do everything we can to make sure it's answered during the Q&A. If you wait, sometimes it depends on how many people. One night where it was like 70 people, and I was like, rah! I was like whack-a-mole with my questions. So you guys, you're welcome. Thanks for the nice words there. And I hope that you missed it. I missed the answer to April's question.
I'll find it and
Okay.
give it to Ann. Ann, just
Okay.
hold on.
So there we go. We encourage you to sign up for one of the Q&As, and thank you for hanging and taking some of your Saturday. We really want to help you guys get what you need to get back into your homes. We're here. We're going to be here until everybody's back in their homes. We're still doing people in Sonoma County from 2017. We'll help you, and we'll be here for you. So use our website. We're launching a new website, and hopefully it's going to, it's going to be even easier to find what you need, but we're here, and thank you for joining us. Okay, take care. Have a great Saturday.